Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, the number one source for news, analysis, and discussion on the Detroit Red Wings, the NHL, and all things hockey. Here are your hosts, Ryan Hanna, Brad Crisco, and Evan Lopsinger.
You know what this episode is, and tomorrow when the Red Wings are back for me? You know when, you'd go out in college or university and you just have a messy night with, some of your best friends and feelings would get hurt? And then the next day, you'd all just meet up and be like, let's just start over. Let's just forget that night never happened. That's me with the Olympics. I feel like people have been very upset with me lately, and we've all been kind of jarring at each other, taking shots at each other. I think we should just bury the hatchet. We're all back on the Red Wings wagon, ready to go. I just feel like we just need to give each other a pass on that.
Well, there's two outcomes here for you, Evan, and I'll brace you for both of them. One, the Red Wings play well, and what you just said is exactly what happens. Or B, the Red Wings play bad, and people are going to somehow be even angrier at you.
I tried my best. I extended the olive branch.
Aside from making repeated god-awful opinions and predictions on this show, you know what I'm actually the most mad at you about? You took the heat off Brad. And that's just, I can't abide by that.
I was passing by the sun, and I felt the heat of that, and I'm like, that's enough. One trip around was enough for me.
Evan Icarus Lobsinger.
Pretty much.
The amount of people who I had to tell, no, he is indeed kidding. That's how he delivers his jokes. He delivers everything deadpan. But no, Evan was kidding. So yeah, you've made a lot of enemies with your terrible predictions over the Olympics.
Yeah, we'll just move on. We'll move past it. Let's just forget about it, We'll think about it again in 2 years, I guess.
You've put yourself in a dangerous spot because historically on this podcast, when you make the Red Wings results at this point in the season, you make that decide how your life goes one way or the other. That's a dangerous proposition. So good thing for you is that this is the best Red Wings team we've seen in a long, long time. The bad thing for you is that nothing's guaranteed. This is a tight race. So this could be it for Evan Lopsinger.
Well, you got to read between the lines, and what Evan's saying right now is he doesn't have time to war with the United States because he's got to go back to his original war with the province of Quebec.
That's right.
That's right.
Can't be battling two at once. It's not a fair fight.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's how I look at it.
This is exciting because after this episode, we are back to Red Wings hockey. So folks, welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, the world of the NHL, and lots more. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we are going to be actually bringing you an interview with Frankie Corrado, NHL player turned broadcaster, who you would have heard on a previous Detroit Red Wings broadcast alongside Ken Daniels. Great conversation with Frankie. Really excited for you to hear it. We talk about the playoff push, the Red Wings, his career, all of that and more. We're going to bring you updates on what's coming up for the Red Wings as the whole team is back together practicing and looking forward to their game against Ottawa on Thursday and beyond that. NHL news and notes and more. Very quickly, Winged Wheel Podcast night at the LCA. That is Saturday, March 21st. That's the game against the Boston Bruins, which could be poised to be a pretty big one in this playoff race. We'll see. Get your tickets at wingedwheelpodcast.com/Red Wings. Your tickets not only get you discounted access to the Red Wings game, you also get access to the live recording of the Winged Wheel Podcast pregame at Little Caesars Arena, featuring us, the hosts, Ken Daniels, lead announcer of the Detroit Red Wings, and other special guests. Plus, you get a limited edition, officially licensed, co-branded hat. It is a Detroit Red Wings and Winged Wheel Podcast co-branded hat. It is Centennial themed, so the Centennial logo on the front, the podcast logo on the side. It's the red and cream colorway. It is a sweet, sweet hat. We are down to our last 100 tickets, I believe it is. So very low percentage remaining. So get your tickets. Once they're gone, they're gone. wingedwheelpodcast.com/Red Wings. And most importantly, every ticket purchased represents a donation to the Jamie Daniels Foundation. Also, if you want to support the show and everything we do, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. You get access to bonus episodes, our Patreon exclusive Discord, giveaways. We give away 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game going directly to our Patreon supporters, and lots more. So again, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. Okay, let's just jump into it with our interview with Frankie Corrado. Great conversation, and we'll be back with you on the other side. Back after this. We're joined today for the first time ever on the Winged Wheel podcast. I think this is our first NHL player turned media broadcaster, Frankie Corrado. Frankie, thank you so much for joining the show. And I think that you would be the first one on the Winged Wheel podcast who's held both roles.
What an honor. Yeah, thank you, man. Thanks for having me. What a thrill. What's going on?
Well, I mean, the listeners will be thrilled to hear that we were both commiserating about the Olympic gold medal game yesterday, but we were both talking about how great of hockey it was. So I think you and I are both in the same place, but yeah, that's pretty much what's in my head right now. How about you?
It was, man, you know what? We were so spoiled. I think we were so spoiled throughout the course of that Olympics, and it just got better and better as the games went on and the stakes got higher. The best players, like, they delivered, right? On so many different levels, whether it was McDavid or Hellebuck or, whoever. Like, there was a lot of great stories that kind of shined through that tournament. And then to get the, like, dramatic swings of momentum and theatrics and calls, non-calls, empty nets, like, it was wild, man. It was worth the wait. And we got to see a new generation of players playing in the Olympics. And I think everyone's thinking now, like fast forward 2 years ahead for the next best on best tournament. Like, we need to keep this ball moving and keep this thing going.
100%. Yeah. And it's not even just, for the Canadians and the Americans, the Canadians wanting revenge, the Americans wanting to put their foot on the gas. I think of the Swedes who are sitting here like, this was a disaster and we need the next event to get our stuff together. Yeah. And the Finns who are like, we just medal all the time and we want to continue to build on that. So could not agree more. Frankie, let's talk first about your NHL playing days, because I think that's such a great thing for a broadcaster to have in terms of those unique insights. You understand what happens in the dressing room, the process those guys go through to get on the ice. So walk us a little bit through your career as a player coming up through the ranks in the NHL.
I had a weird career, man. And I think that's what helps me in this second career is that I probably had some weird circumstances come up along the way. Definitely made some mistakes, and it helps you kind of navigate things, but it also helps you have a unique perspective, right? Like, you could play, 600-700 games worry-free, stress-free, and everything goes well. But, when I was grinding through the minors, I was a healthy scratch for a long time. You get like this unique perspective where you're watching games through all these different lenses. So, my career, I was a 5th round pick to Vancouver the year after they had gone to the Stanley Cup final. Ended up signing with them like right out of my first training camp, 18 years old. Played 2 more years in the OHL and eventually turned pro after that. But, after my 4th year in the OHL, I actually made my NHL debut as a 20-year-old. So one of the first players out of that 2011 draft class to make an NHL debut, which was really cool. And this is where things start to get crazy, right? Like, so I had Alain Vigneault as the coach that year, which wasn't even my first year pro. I turned pro the next year, John Tortorella as the coach. That year was a disaster in Vancouver. And then the next year, he's fired. Willie Desjardins comes in. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm not even pro for 2 years. We've had 3 head coaches. Like, what? Some guys go through a whole career, they might have 3 head coaches, It was so strange to have to go through all that, but you see how different coaches manage things and how they want to play, how they communicate with players. So that was wild. And then, it was pretty well documented after I got to Toronto, playing for Mike Babcock, who, a lot of listeners to your podcast would be very familiar with. Like, yeah. I saw a crazy stat the other day that the top 5 like consecutive healthy scratches, I'm there twice in the top 5. And it's both years I was in Toronto. So, that was a unique perspective just to see, the whole Babs thing and have to be a healthy scratch. And then moved on to Pittsburgh, played in Europe, ended my career there, had a ton of injuries from basically age 26 to 30 when I retired. And ultimately that's the reason why I had to retire. But yeah, Lou Lamoriello had a quote one time in my career when I was healthy scratched in Toronto. He basically said it's an unfortunate set of circumstances and it's no one's fault. And I feel like I look back on my career and I can say the whole thing was really an unfortunate set of circumstances. It felt like.
Red Wings fans will tell you it was unfortunate for your time in Toronto, but I have to say, like, going from Vancouver to Toronto, two of the three most insane markets to play in the NHL. So I don't know what it is, like 69 games between the two. I think that's a 10 times multiplier in terms of experience because of how intense and wild those markets are.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like if I start in Vancouver, and first of all, Canadian market, so there's a lot of people there after practice, after morning skate, and think about like every talk show is centered around the Canucks, right? Like the BC Lions, CFL, they'll get their, they'll talk about them, they'll talk about the soccer team, the Whitecaps, but it's Canucks 24/7. So you're living and breathing it. Everyone's got a take, everyone's got an opinion, and it's on all day. And the fans expect the team to win, especially at that time. Keep in mind, like they're coming off Game 7 loss to Boston, right? And then they're coming off a President's Trophy and then losing to LA in the first round. And then we got swept by San Jose. I played all 4 playoff games. And so, that was a fan base that was hungry to win because they were so close. And then going to Toronto, the reason why people talk about Toronto so much is because everyone's based out of there, right? Like I'm with TSN, we're based there, Sportsnet's based there, CBC, like it's just everyone's kind of there, so everyone's around all the time, and so you get good relationships with the reporters and the guys that cover it. But man, they're always around. Like the big guys, I don't know how they did it every night, every day, having answered the same questions over and over again. But credit to them, they did it. But yeah, if you're a big time player in those two markets, that'll add a little more mileage to you just having to go through that.
I have to ask more. No, I understand it wasn't a long time, but you got Mike Babcock after he left Detroit, took the money, reset the coaching market, and as we found out later, more of the Mike Babcock that was a little bit problematic came out. Any experiences you had with him where you saw something that ended up being writing on the wall for how that whole thing shook out or that was notable in your time there?
Yeah, I look back at it, and I think my mindset at the time was just, dude, shut your mouth and be a sponge and just try and absorb and go about your business. And when you get a chance to play, you just play hard and don't worry about anything. Don't overthink anything. That's your mindset, right? Because you're trying to make it. You're there, but you haven't really made it, right? Like you make it when you sign your big ticket and whatever. That obviously never happened. So, there's a few like run-ins where, I think the very first one was awesome. The very first one was great. Like I think, and I've told this story before, but essentially it was like, I didn't really know who I was. The very first time we met, he's like, I gotta be honest, I don't really know who you are. I've never, just hop in the gym and then meet me for video tomorrow morning and we'll go over some stuff. I'm in my head, I'm like, whatever, I'm going to show him, but never really went anywhere from there. Now, I will say this about him, if you and I were in a room together and he had the TV and he was going to show us a 5-minute video session, we would both walk out of that like smarter about the game of hockey. Like he was great in that regard. But as far as like communicating with players and pushing the right buttons, definitely not his forte. I'll tell you this though, this was one of my favorites. And maybe this was game 1 of the era in Toronto. So maybe this should have been a little bit of a tell as well. But me and Roman Polak were healthy scratched. It was the game at the Joe where Larkin scored, I think it was Larkin's first NHL game, was it not?
Yeah, that's right.
So me and Polak are sitting there, we're getting ready for our bike ride, and the color commentator for CBC, because they're doing that game that night, walks by us and he stops and he goes, "It's a record-setting night, boys." And he just kind of walked away after. And so me and Polly were like, whoa. What do you mean? What are you talking about? He goes, "Money on the board." And we stopped again. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "There is so much money on that board in Detroit tonight." He goes, "They had guys calling it in." He goes, "I will guarantee you there has never been more money on a board in an NHL game than what is up there right now tonight." And so maybe that should have been the most telling thing of all.
like, I know no one ever says it, so I understand if you don't know or you can't say, but do you have any idea ballpark what that number would be? I've always wanted to know.
My guess would be like it would have to be close to $100,000. I'm just totally guessing, right? Because if you think about it, okay, if I'm back in the lineup as like a guy, like let's say you make decent cash, you're probably putting up $1,000, right?
Yeah.
And it's the first game of the season. Everyone wants to win first game of the season, so that's like, easy. Guys are going to throw a ton of money up. But when you get guys like big money guys who played for a long time calling it in, that could be 5. Like I wouldn't be surprised if there was a 10 spot up there, right? So that's just a guess. I would have no idea.
To give the listeners some more context, just because I don't know if everyone will have heard this, like Henrik Zetterberg was a pretty, professional, even-keeled guy. And there you can find some interviews pretty easily where he was pretty intense in terms of how he talked about there not being an alignment or complete agreement between the players in the room and the coach when Mike Babcock was there. And I remember we talked to Nick Lidstrom way back on the show, and in very Nick Lidstrom way, like very professional, like wouldn't say it, but you read between the lines. And he mentioned it wasn't always the most aligned thinking between the players and the captain and Mike Babcock. So it does not surprise me at all to know that there are guys who would want to get that revenge.
And you know what, man? I always have to say, because I never want these conversations turning into like a woe is me and make it all about like, complaining, because no one's entitled to anything in the NHL, right? Like you have to earn it, and everyone's got to deal with their own stuff. But I always got to say, like, if we sat in a room, we would learn a lot about hockey. Like very smart guy, actually really likes his practices, runs a great practice. But then, you hear other stories like, the guys in Detroit bought him a coffee machine because they didn't want him going into their common area, like their lounge area, and making coffee because they don't want to talk to him, right? You're like, okay, I see where this goes off the rails a bit.
Yeah. So your playing career, you mentioned the way it went with the NHL and then heading over to Europe. And, about the time when you retired, did you have a sense that this second career now in media and broadcasting is what you wanted? Like, how did that come about?
So, I mean, I probably talked too much when I played, and that didn't do me any favors in the dressing room, to put it mildly, but that's okay. You know what? I didn't really know this was something I wanted to do, and quite honestly, didn't even know how to like get started. And you have to also keep in mind, like once you cross that threshold, you have to be able and willing to be critical about things, right? And you're like, it's a lot of players that were better than me. What gives me the right to critique them if I couldn't do what they did? But you also have to keep in mind that keep it fair, keep it objective, and don't say anything that you wouldn't say to someone's face, right? So anyways, how did I get started? There was just an opportunity on TSN radio. They had some people away and they did a show called Leafs Lunch, just a 2-hour show, basically 12 to 2, talking about the Leafs. And it just kind of, a friend of mine was hosting it. And so he reached out to me, said, we need someone to fill in. Would you want to do it? I said, no problems, right in my wheelhouse, right? Like I'm home. I was home from the KHL, rehabbing my hip, which was in really bad shape. And I didn't have anything else really going on. And then that coincided with TSN getting the Canadian Hockey League package for the first year. And I think they just wanted to try out some new people, see if they can, build some talent from the ground up there. So I got the opportunity to do that. It went well. Another, area of hockey that I'm very familiar with, having played in the OHL. And then from there, there was a bit of a shuffle because Ray Ferraro had left TSN to do a lot of ESPN stuff. So they were, down an analyst. That means, Mike Johnson, Jamie McLennan, Dave Poulin, all those guys doing more color games, and maybe there's going to be a few panels available. So started doing that. And next thing you know, Pooley's gone. He's with the Ottawa Senators, and it's like busier than ever at TSN. And it's just, you got to put in the work. Like you see it with your show and having to be up to date on basically everything. If you put in the work, just like when you played, you get opportunities. But that's basically how it came to be. Just a radio kind of fill in, and here we are now.
I'll tell you, Red Wings fans are extremely critical because we're spoiled, having Ken and Mick on the call. I really feel bad actually for folks who are on the national calls because it's not their fault. I mean, national games are part of the the whole system. They're part of the game. And as the Red Wings get better, there's going to be more national games. And I'm often one of them where every time there's a national game, I'm like, okay, it's another one without Ken and Mick. And, you know, with Mick being away as he recovers from his successful surgery, so hopefully he's doing well. But with him away, you stepped in next to Ken and you did a fantastic job on that call, man. Like that was really, really great. And it wasn't just me. Like the chorus among Red Wings fans was saying, like Frankie's doing an awesome job. I think that was a lot of people's first time hearing you because, you know, there are Canadian Red Wings fans, but for the majority of listeners or viewers in Michigan, they won't have heard you on TSN or any of your shows. So they loved it. So what was it like calling that game next to Ken?
It was a thrill. It was really cool. You know, having met Ken and Mick a few years back, they're one of those duos that when you see you have a Red Wings game penciled in on your schedule, you can't wait to just talk to them before a game. Like you can't wait to talk to Mickey and see what story he's going to tell and, you know, kind of fill you in on what's going on with the Red Wings. And same with Ken. Like they're the nicest guys that you could ever imagine meeting. And they're very informative. And like I watch the Red Wings show because I love it. Like I've seen it on my couch, you know, and I'm like, man, they do such a good job. They're on it with replays. They're on it with boards and stats. Like they don't miss a thing. And then every year, you know, the Athletic comes out with the rankings and I'm like, of course they're first. Like why wouldn't they? And not to mention the charm and the chemistry that they have. And then it was eye-opening to be on the show and see what goes into it and the prep and, you know, working with Ken was awesome. Like he's such a pro. Nothing gets past him, right? Like, and he's making sure like we're up to date on everything. And Brian Henry, our producer, was amazing. Like so on the ball. Like I was asking for replays and he's like, I got it for you. I'm like, oh man, this is, you know, and it's not like that's different than what, you know, we do at TSN. I think we're good at what we do, but it was really awesome to be with those guys in the moment. And, you know, it was just one game, but it's one game that you kind of cherish and you remember because of the guys that are working on it and how much it means to everyone in the market. Like I know there's a lot of pride that goes into, you know, their show and what it means to everyone. So it was really cool, man. It's hard to describe it any other way, really.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, I mean, you know, obviously you're going to be familiar with the Red Wings being in Toronto. You're largely covering the Leafs with what you do and another Original Six franchise. Between that and then, you know, calling the game from up in the gondola, what do you make of the Red Wings this season, especially as they're making a playoff push these last 24 games?
Okay, so I was at Little Caesars for game 1 because I do color for mostly Montreal games. Like I do panels for all the other TSN games, but I do 30 Habs games a year. So I'm in the building for game 1. And my partner, Brian Mudrick, and I are calling it. And like, you know, during a commercial break, I'm like, what is going on over here? Right? Like this, I don't know if it's first game of the year stuff or jitters or just whatever it was. And then, you know, get back to our hotel after the game when we found out that like Todd McLellan basically lost it after game 1. And I'm like, you know what? I don't mind that. I don't mind that he's kind of setting the tone right away because these are things that has plagued the Red Wings for a while now, right? Like they've had moments where they're so close to making the playoffs and then all of a sudden in March, they're going to go on a 6-game, you know, skid and it's going to cost them, right? And it's like at some point you have to really drive it home that it's not going to be acceptable. So he fired a bullet early. And then as the season goes on, you know, there were moments where maybe it wavers a little bit, but it's almost like, I don't know, it's like watching one of those stock market charts, right? Where it wavers a bit, but at the end of the day, it's still going up. And I think that's been the case for the Red Wings this year. Where, okay, like, you know, a couple in a row, but then it's back up. And I think they're a so much more improved defensive team than they have been in a while. They're getting good offensive production from the players that they're supposed to be getting it from, which, you know, you can't win if you don't have it. I mean, Lucas Raymond, if you didn't know how good he was before the Olympics, you know how good he is after the Olympics. DeBrincat is a more complete player than he, you know, ever has been. And that really started, if you go back to last year. You know, Dylan Larkin is maybe, I don't want to call him one of the most underrated players in the league, but maybe one of the more underappreciated players, especially for having to carry this team for as long as he has. And Moritz Seider is starting to get the recognition he deserves as far as one of the more premier two-way defensemen in the NHL. And you're getting goaltending. Like John Gibson, who had a slow start, basically from December onwards, has been exactly what you hoped and thought he was going to be when he comes over. So all those things add up to a team that's, top 10 in the NHL. They play within themselves, which is where they need to be, because if they're going to freewheel it, they don't have a Connor McDavid that's going to just, they don't have a McDavid Draisaitl that can win you a certain amount of games on its own. They have to do it together.
Can I get a prediction from you? Do you think they make this playoff push, they end the drought, or?
Yes. Yeah. If I pull up the standings right now, okay, wild card, I don't see a scenario. I just don't see the path for them for it to fall off. I think they've earned where they are in the standings, and I think that's an encouraging thing for them. Some teams will score more than they're supposed to. Some teams will get more saves than they're supposed to get, and eventually it all kind of evens out. I think they're right where they're supposed to be.
All right, officially a friend of the podcast now. It was up in the air before. So, calling those games or doing color for those games in Montreal, that's a team that most Red Wings fans are looking at pretty intensely when they consider not just this season, but the rebuild or coming out of the rebuild itself. What do you see with the Habs? Are they the real deal as well? And, how much of a threat can they be to the rest of the Atlantic?
The Habs are one of the more exciting teams around the league. They have a real knack for producing offense, and they have, a bona fide superstar offensive defenseman, where they're potentially, having issues is in net. How vulnerable are they? Because they have Montembeault, who's had, his struggles big time this year, eventually went down to the minors, came back up. And Jakub Dobish, who is a young goalie who can be erratic at times, but has won. He's been the goalie who's won the lion's share of the game. So that's where I think Montreal, if anywhere, they're the most vulnerable. They've built a nice blue line. Marty St. Louis has really got them bought in, and he's good at sort of coaching the individual. What do you need differently than the other guy needs? And he's good at bringing that out in players, but they score, man. They find different ways to produce offense, and that's the thing that you worry about if you have to play Montreal. But there's always ways that you can beat teams. It just, how can you exploit it?
Now, on the flip side of the Atlantic, I think the team that probably has the worst vibes in the division has to be the Leafs right now. Leafs fans probably had a really rough go watching Austin Matthews win for the first time, and it wasn't with anyone that they cared about. So, the vibes say that things are catastrophic, but the Atlantic standings and the Eastern Conference standings don't say that the Leafs are completely out of it. What do you think is in the cards for them the rest of the season? Is it, full send towards a lottery pick, or you think they could still be in this thing?
I don't know if they're bad enough to be full send towards a lottery pick. They're in a weird spot. And you know what's crazy? They're at 63 points. If they were in the West, they're in a playoff spot. But we talk about it in the East like it's some catastrophic thing. But if you've watched them play, you're like, that team's not good. And that team's not going to win a cup or do anything of significance this year. So what are they? And what's their plan? I stand by this. Toronto's in a situation where if there are guys that they can get things for, they should do it, because they should almost, I don't want to say you would never give up, right? But you almost look towards next year and say, can we start setting ourselves up for next year now and get some pieces in place or some assets or some youth, whatever, and then finish that July 1st, first week of July, so we feel like we're in a good spot starting camp next year? Do we get a 5-month head start on that process? And that's where I think Toronto should be at, because, how bad can you be if you have Matthews and Nylander and, even John Tavares for that matter, Matthew Nyes, Joe Wall's a good goalie. I just don't think you can, I don't think you get it all the way down to the basement. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle things. It's not a market that typically is doing this, right? For 9 years, I was there 9 years ago. That was year one of making the playoffs. And now the expectation is make the playoffs. Okay, great. Everyone here is kind of just taking it for granted, making the playoffs. And I'm sure Wings fans look at that and say, how dare you guys take that for granted, man? We're dying to get back there. It's been 9 years.
Yeah. I agree. I don't see them going into that again intentionally. I think there's a little bit of a New York Rangers vibe there where they're going to try to find their way to, if there's going to be a dip, make it as short as possible and be aggressive to stay up, in the mix. Does that work necessarily well in the NHL? I just don't think too many teams can do it well. Like Vegas does it, but they had a great head start. And there's other teams that are as aggressive, but they're working from a position of strength. So it'll be interesting to see if Toronto cuts any guys loose and how deep that would go.
I think the team that you would look at that did it most recently is Washington, right? Like think about all the players that Washington has lost from, even the time they won their cup, right? Like Backstrom's gone, Oshie's gone, Kuznetsov's gone, Niskanen is gone, Holtby's gone. And then last year they turn around and they had an unbelievable season, right? First place in the Eastern Conference. And you're like, wait a second, when did Washington bottom out, right? But they made the right trades. They haven't had PLD all year, but that was a good trade for them. And then they traded Nick Jensen, you guys know very well, for Jacob Chikrin, right? And you're like, man, they pulled off these great trades, and at the same time, they drafted guys like, Ryan Leonard and Alexi Protas, and you're like, okay, like that's it. There's some work that your pro scouting needs to do in order for that to happen, and they're going to have to hit, and you're going to have to pull it off, but that's the team that I could look to and say, okay, pieces out, but then the pieces in mattered. And, Washington's, nothing's guaranteed for them at this point too. Like they still got to work their way back into a playoff spot, but they haven't really had the success that they had last year, where it felt like everyone had a career year last year.
All right. So last question here, because I think both me and you are going to be focusing on this for the next few weeks, but the trade deadline. Do you see this season being at all active across the league, or do you think this is going to be our typical kind of thinner trade deadline in terms of activity?
I wonder if it's going to be thinner just because, how many true sellers are there? And if there's not a ton of sellers and there's a bunch of teams that are in the mix and don't want to give up on things, how much can you possibly buy? But I will say this, like if there was ever a year for Detroit to be thinking about making a move and doing something with a little more significance, this is the year to do it, right? Like you got a goalie who's playing great. You've got high-end forwards that are playing really well, but you need some help on the back end. Like they need to be thinking defenseman first. And, I know like Dregs and some of our guys have talked about a second line center. Find me 8 teams in the NHL that aren't looking for a second line center. Everyone wants, and everyone wants an upgrade at that position. It's hard to come by, but I think the priority is a defenseman who can play some minutes, not just a guy around the fringes of the lineup, a guy who can play some minutes and a guy who can move the puck. Like I know he's older. He's got one more year on his deal and he's playing really well this year, but I think like Falk would be really good for them from St. Louis. I was even thinking this was before Pittsburgh was in a playoff spot, but like, it's not going to happen now. But if you could find like a Brett Kulak, right? Like he's in Pittsburgh, you're like, okay, guy who can play a lot of minutes, skates really well, gets the puck out of his zone. Like that's what I would be looking at. Things like that, things of that nature if you're Detroit. And I don't know if you have a different view on it.
Oh, the listeners are going to be very familiar with Falk. And I think there's been some, from the TSN side of things, I think there's been some more reporting about Mackenzie Weegar, which would be a little bit more of a interesting trade because he would come at a high cost, a lot of years left, and that would take him to, I think, 37, 38 years old by the end of his contract. But that's a right shot D who's a good defenseman, not on, the up and up in terms of his age curve, but he's a guy who could play really well for you. So
yeah,
there are names out there. There's no perfect fit in my mind outside of a few guys. The obvious caveat is, but they're going to come at a high cost. And I think where we've landed on the show is at some point you got to pay the cost.
Yeah. Especially if you're going to get someone with term. Like, so if you're going to pay the cost, at least have an extra year attached to it. So it's not someone who's a rental and maybe they're gone. But, I Dylan Larkin has had his, moment where he talked about the trade deadline and not getting anyone. And this is the year where you're like, it's up for grabs, right? Like Tampa's a good team for sure. Look where Florida is. Look where Toronto is. Look where Ottawa is. Like Ottawa got there last year, but two legacy teams are not guaranteed to make the playoffs at this point. Like you can strike here and grab a hold of something. I think that this is the opportunity for the Red Wings to do that. And just kind of looking through some of the other guys that might be available. I see. I saw some Logan Stanley stuff. I watch a lot of Winnipeg. I feel like they have that already. Like, I think Ben Sherrod is a more polished, refined version of that already. I would be looking for more. How can we move the puck more? How can we get the puck into the hands of Raymond and Larkin and DeBrincat and Kane? That's where my emphasis would be.
All right, Frankie, where can people tune into you? You mentioned your shows on TSN and calling the color for the Montreal game. So let people know where they can tune into you if they want to venture over to the Ontario side of things and find out.
You know what? Anything on TSN's YouTube page. We're doing a lot of Sports Center hits. Every once in a while, I'll fill in on Overdrive for those guys who do such a great job. And yeah, anything TSN is doing, whether it's a regional broadcast for Leafs, Habs, Sens, or Jets, we kind of do it all. We get a little bit of like the ESPN car wash vibe every once in a while. So anywhere you see a TSN logo.
Awesome. Great to have you on the show, folks. Frankie Corrado, hope to hear you again on a broadcast someday. Appreciate you jumping on. Can't wait to do this again, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
It's always this time of year, once the playoff push really gets rolling, that my routine gets thrown off. Late games, post-game breakdowns, group chats blowing up. Suddenly it's 10:30 and I haven't eaten anything real. I'm trying to stay consistent, but cooking just isn't happening on nights like that. That's where Tempo has been clutch. They deliver fresh, chef-crafted meals right to your door, and they're fully cooked. 2 minutes in the microwave and you're good. It's actual food. It's properly portioned. It's not just some sad snack that you eat while rewatching a third period collapse. It's a real meal. We recently tried the red pepper chicken breast and the sweet and sour pineapple meatballs, and they were both excellent, and we will be repeating those ones. The chicken had real heat without being overpowering, and the pineapple meatballs hit that sweet and savory balance that I love especially, and it didn't feel heavy at all either. It had high protein. It was balanced without feeling like it was diet food. Tempo rotates in a bunch of new recipes every week, so you're not stuck eating the same thing over and over. Whether you're looking for protein-packed meals like we often are, calorie-conscious options, or just something that keeps you from ordering takeout after a tough loss or a big win, there's flexibility built in. For a limited time, Tempo is offering our listeners 60% off your first box. Go to tempomeals.com/wingedwheel. That's tempomeals.com/wingedwheel for 60% off your first box. tempomeals.com/wingedwheel. Rules and restrictions may apply. Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed our interview with Frankie Corrado. Awesome to have him on the show. Looking forward to doing that again and hopefully hearing him on a call sometime again somehow. So really, really fun conversation with him. And he made his prediction. He said he thinks the Red Wings do it. He thinks they make the playoffs. So I like how, if you guys remember a long time ago when it was still Ken Holland as GM and we were campaigning just for a long time in terms of getting Steve Yzerman to come back to Detroit, we would put people on the spot in interviews to say, do you think Steve Yzerman is returning? We're doing the same thing now with the playoff predictions.
There's a lot more yeses I'm seeing in the hockey universe than maybes and or nos.
Very cool.
It's uncharted territory, it feels like.
It doesn't make me feel any better.
No, not at all.
Actually makes me feel slightly worse because now if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's like, the stakes are definitely higher. And also, like, objectively, the Olympic break was a good thing. The collective hangover may have killed Dylan Larkin. But other than that, like the Olympic break was a good thing wherein Simon Edvinsson got healthy. Lucas Raymond played well, but didn't play all the games. Mo Seider played well, didn't play all the games. Dylan Larkin played all the games, but he wasn't playing like 20-something minutes a night. We'll see if he's, carrying anything, but should be ready to go. Like that's the expectation. So yeah, the Olympic break should have made you feel better. We're at these last 24 games and I feel more nervous now. Like it's so real. Before it was like the Olympic break was this big opaque wall where you're like, okay.
We weren't looking on the other side of the fence.
No.
We were like, the Olympic break's coming up, then the trade deadline. That'll be exciting. But we didn't really think about there's only 24 games. The majority of this season has been played. Like, we are absolutely in the crunch now, and every divisional game becomes way more important. And the Red Wings kick off this last bit of the season against Ottawa tomorrow. So it's sort of starting as quickly as possible and with a extremely important game. So it's very nervous right now.
I think the reason it is that way is because there is quite literally no excuse for the team this year. 2 years ago when they had their March collapse, okay, well, Larkin was hurt. As much as they had the cushion, if you're missing your captain, one of your best players, yeah, that's going to hamper you. Last year was that first rush of like, this was inexcusable, but we weren't really expecting much. It happened. It sucks. You learn from it. Don't do it again. Well, here we are in a fairly similar position. Team's healthy, we think. They went into a losing skid and had the Olympic break to stop it, to have that reset, to be like, okay, we saw things going off the rails a little bit. Perfect break in the calendar, reset, come back, get your crap together. The team has performed exceptionally well for very long stretches of this season. Goaltending doesn't seem to be a question mark. Mo Seider has ascended to a Norris-level defenseman.
I just knocked on wood.
But again, not that everything has gone perfect for the team this year, but all the key things that haven't gone well for them in previous years that led to the failures aren't there this year. So if they come back from this break healthy, happy, ready to go, and collapse again, there's no excuses. Like, we will not be able to sit here and have a good reason or a good way to reconcile it. It will just be an abject failure this time around. Big questions will be asked, fairly or unfairly, but they will be asked because of the context. And all that, before I even mentioned, they got a 7-point gap on 9th place. If you blow a 7-point gap in 24 games...
Clip it.
Oh, they did it an 8-point gap 2 years ago, but I think it was a bit more games than that left. But still, I think that's why I'm so nervous now, because every previous year, they were either horrible or they collapsed, but we could understand why the collapse happened and we could reconcile it. I don't have that this year. So if it does happen again, it's just misery and failure. And that is why I'm so nervous.
Isn't that the motto of the podcast?
Pretty much. Yeah, you could tell how the last 10 years have gone, where they're in a good position, playing well. Going into the break, they weren't playing well, but over the course of the season, this is the best team they've had since, I don't know what year you can pick, but you can argue even the years they made the playoffs at the start of this podcast history, like, that was on a downward trend. Like, everything is coming up Millhouse this year, and we are still so anxious, and we can't help but think of this as in, please, can we just get it done? I'm so scared of the horrors, rather than, wow, this is so exciting that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
It's the inverse Boston Bruins, when everyone's like, oh yeah, Boston's going to die this year. Now they won the division. They won the President's Trophy. It's the opposite for the Red Wings. They're like, oh, they're in a great position. Yeah, they may not make it. Oh, their players, they've got 230 goal scorers. They might have a 40 goal scorer. Yeah, well,
I'll believe it when I see it.
They have a 9, 7, 10-point stretch over 9th place. It's like, yeah, maybe. Wish it was more.
Here's what's in their favor. First off, only 2 sets of back-to-backs left, which I know you've hammered in the past, Evan. That's huge. The Red Wings have had a grind of a schedule coming in, and I mean, it helped them. They're not playing on Wednesday like tonight, so they're playing on Thursday. Their schedule is objectively lighter by at least a few games than a lot of other teams who are competing for these playoff spots. Only 2 sets of back-to-backs left. One is a home and away, or I should say away and home in late March, and then early April, there's a away and home again. But other than that, they have breaks between their games. Other teams are going to be worn down. The attrition will have kicked in. There's other teams who have players who picked up injuries from the Olympics. Pittsburgh, what are they going to do? Crosby's out at least 4 weeks. There's other teams with guys who came back who are banged up. I think out west, and you think of Mikko Rantanen out west, that's not really relevant to Detroit, but still. And the trade deadline is soon here. It's March 6th. It's what, a weekend?
It's 9 days.
Like, that's nothing. And so teams are going to have to make decisions. None of that's a guarantee because, as we've talked about all season, it's a historically tight playoff race, or at least that's the way it feels. But the Red Wings have what they need to at least be, as much as you can be, favored right now.
They've put themselves in a good position at this point in the season. And as much as there are concerns about the roster and the 24 games left amount of success that it could inspire, there's a lot of good things that have happened this season that have put them in this position. So you can either look at the one or the other, I think.
I see this game against Ottawa, and obviously it's important. You want to hit the ground running. You want to set the tone, considering things weren't feeling good going into the break. I think it'll be huge because it's on the road. It's in Ottawa. It's the two U.S. Olympic buddies in Larkin and Tkachuk facing off, who are no longer going to be buddies that game. Tkachuk's been a huge thorn in Detroit's side, and even though Ottawa's having their struggles this season, I still maintain they're not out of it. If they get some kind of miraculous turnaround from their goalie who went and drank from the fountain of learn how to be a goaltender again over the break, that's a team that's playing well outside of their goaltender. That's a playoff caliber team in every position other than in net this season, so they could be back in it. You go and beat them, and that's a great way to start. Because I'm looking at Saturday on the road also against Carolina, and Carolina is one of those teams that just plays so annoyingly well against Detroit. I have zero expectations for that game. Any result, a point at all, I would be thrilled with against Carolina, who's like designed specifically to be a thorn in Detroit's side. So this first game back is crucial for them.
And also the next few games could shape the trade deadline.
That's what I was going to say. Like, there's a extremely small sample size, and I'm sure Steve Yzerman's not basing whether he's going to buy or sell from the Olympic break to the trade deadline. But there's a small window in like final indication on what to do with this roster. So they better give a good performance because you do not want to be sending mixed messages come to the trade deadline.
If Yzerman's sitting on the fence, whether to go heavy, go light, or not buy at all, these next 2-3 games could sway him one way or the other. If they come out against Ottawa and Carolina and look like crap, he's probably going to sit there and go, oh, I can't give up a first-round pick this year. If this comes off the rails, I'm not saying that's the right answer, but he might think that. And you circle back to last season with Larkin complaining about we need help at the trade deadline. Okay, here's your last chance to earn some. Go do it. We all want Yzerman to add. I don't think there's a Red Wings fan alive right now saying, don't buy.
I got a comment a little while ago that said, still have to be patient. Got to add in prospects and picks. I did not respond to that one. But yeah, no, I fully agree that everyone wants this. I will say, I think there are certain situations where he would be adding one way or another. Let's put out the hypothetical, opinion on whether it would be prudent or not aside. Mackenzie Weegar would come with a lot of term. That's a guy who you're hoping to be a factor for more years beyond this one. Justin Falk might fit into your scenario there if it's like, God, this price hurts, but the value of making the playoffs this year cannot be overstated. So I'm going to pay a little bit more. But then if they lose 5 of their 5 games coming out of the break heading into the deadline, or I should say it's 4 games because they play on the trade deadline at 7 p.m. So that's after the deadline's over.
God, I hate that they do that.
It's the worst. Then maybe it's like, okay, I don't want to pay it because the price is so astronomically high for a Falk or a Ristolainen. And I don't know, more or less, I think I sit in the camp of Yzerman's going to try to add one way or another. I don't know that 4 games for me necessarily is enough to sway him.
I don't think it's make or break, but I think it certainly makes you think a little bit more,
No, that's fair. If it's like, I think it would have to be extremely loud how, great.
I think it needs to be a significant injury, which obviously, knock on wood, that doesn't happen, because that's like the only way that could potentially derail the whole season. It's like, okay, Seider goes down, he's done for the season or may not even be back before the end of the regular season, that changes what you do at the trade deadline for me.
I'm really glad we added this wood paneling behind us.
We've
It makes it very
never
useful.
been more thankful.
Yeah, it has, audio utility for us as well, but no, this is purely a luck facilitator.
Keeping out the curses and the hexes.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's what the Red Wings have. They have those 2 road games against Ottawa and Carolina, and then we'll be back with you on Sunday. Elsewhere in the Red Wings world, let's take a look at prospects because, it was a long break and we had a lot of episodes talking about the Red Wings, but the prospects themselves have been doing a lot as well. And there have been guys who have been getting attention all season long, but I think it's worth noting a couple names again and giving attention to some other guys. Someone who had a really slow start, but who has been picking it up as of late, Carter Bear has looked fantastic. Had a hat trick the other night. Really, really kind of playing the kind of game that showed you what the Red Wings saw in him. And that's really promising as well. He wouldn't be the first Red Wings draft pick to have a slow start to a season, but then pick it up. But that was really, I think, relieving to see from Carter Bear.
Well, coming off a major Achilles injury, it was expected. I'm not going to say almost. It was expected that he was going to have a slow start because that is a major, major injury to try to bounce back from. And he came out and was underwhelming as expected. And as he's gotten healthier and the season's progressed and he's gotten his flow throughout the season, he's back. Like he's back. He looks like the guy that was advertised when they drafted him because, Carter Bear isn't a lot of things, but he is a pain in the ass and a hell of a goal scorer. And the goals weren't coming for a good chunk of the year, and now they're coming in droves. So if you're going to take a guy in the first round because he's a goal scorer, you better score some goals. And he is, and it's so relieving.
Yeah, 31 goals, 32 assists through 43 games. And so he's, definitely picked it up. And I think part of it also was like the disappointment for Team Canada in the World Juniors, and he was such a small factor in that team. Got in for 2 games. How many total minutes was it? Like 10 collective minutes or something stupid like that. So it just didn't, like, you're with the context, 100% you have to expect it, but it was just hard to like look through that fog of like, oh, okay, good to see that Carter Bear is back. Someone else who came back from injury and who, has been the offensive player we've always known him to be and more, Amadeus Lombardi, I thought has looked really great. Obviously, when he worked his way back into the lineup, he was still the Amadeus Lombardi that we've always expected, but really picking it up. He had a 3-point night the other night, a 2-point night. The game before that, he had a 3-game point streak not too long before. Basically, he's racking up the offense, but he's playing more of a complete game as well, which I think is cool to see. I've watched a bit. I've been very impressed. I've asked some folks who I know watch a lot more consistently of the Griffins games, and they've noticed the same thing. Shout out to Red Wings Prospects, as always, who does such a great job of covering all of these guys on Twitter. But yeah, I think Amadeus Lombardi has maintained his status of like, this is an interesting prospect, and he could be a factor in this lineup in the future, despite the size concerns there.
They're a big concern, though. He's got to be special offensively to be a regular on the Red Wings because, again, we know the strengths, we know the deficiencies, and his range of outcomes could be everything from good producing third liner to Jonathan Berggren. And which end of that spectrum he falls on is going to depend on, I don't want to say his size because he's never going to be big. Even if he puts on strength, it's never going to be one of the key tools in his toolbox at the NHL level. He's just got to keep building on that toolkit of being a special playmaker, being able to play at a ridiculously high pace and really lean into his strengths.
Could be, one of those guys like a sneaky, productive down the lineup winger in the future. That's most likely if you consider the size concerns and everything. Like if all goes well, that's his positional outcome there.
He's got to be able to play at both ends of the ice. Like, there's not a lot of guys in the bottom 6 who can just be offensive-only players. Like, those guys have their moment, but it doesn't last. If he wants to be a long-term NHLer, he'll have to be available at both ends of the ice. So doing it in Grand Rapids and building it there is the perfect spot right now. And the production's coming as well, so that's what you like to see.
I think the guy who got a lot of attention early on in the season, who still deserves it, is Edvinsson in Sweden. Still has all the makings of a player and a prospect who's going to come over, and one of those guys where from the moment he was drafted has impressed, surpassed a lot of people's expectations, ours included, and I see him being a force, come Grand Rapids, or potentially even more. He could be a guy who accelerates through the program, so to speak, quicker than people anticipate.
Yeah, isn't he like second in like U20 or U21 SHL scoring right now behind Frundell or Stenberg or something like that? It's insane. He's been insanely productive for his draft plus 1 year. And I think he's actually, not that they're one-to-one players, and I don't think he's ever going to turn into it, but his production's, I think, better than Lucas Raymond's was at the same point in their development.
Lucas Raymond's turned out okay.
He turned out all right. And I don't think Edvinsson is ever going to be Lucas Raymond, but man, if he's 75% of Lucas Raymond, they got a player.
If he can be productive and he plays a very tenacious style game, like if he can be hard to play against and chip in offensively from time to time, like those types of guys make careers, 10+ year type careers in the NHL. So yeah, very exciting to see what he's going to do to finish off his season.
It's one of those things where it's like Carter Mazur's not out of the picture. He has a very different, difficult path back, but he's not out of the picture. But kind of what Red Wings fans and the Red Wings have been lamenting with Carter Mazur's repeated injuries is that kind of player, like a tenacious player who's such a piss off to play against, hard-nosed, but productive as well. And it looks like Edvinsson could also fit that mold. And hey, if Mazur gets healthy and can get back on track, you certainly don't hate to have multiple of them, Like, look how much, we're talking different tiers here, but look how much Washington treasures Ryan Leonard, for example. Look how much the Kachucks are valued on the teams that they play on. Like, those kinds of guys, whether they're top of the lineup or bottom of the lineup, you're right, Evan. They always, always, always have a place in this league. With how this league is constructed right now, I don't want to say they're unicorns, but everyone wants as many of them as they can get.
You can't fake being tough. Like, you either are that or you're not. Like, no, and especially at like the NHL level.
Nick Cousins would like a word, but yeah.
But everybody knows that, right? Yeah. Like, you can't convince other people that you're also that if you're not. So when you have that in your DNA, like it's an asset. And when you can pair that up with some production at whatever league you're playing in, you hope it translates to the NHL because teams covet that and you carve out long careers.
A player who some people have been beating the drum for a while, who deserves more attention in terms of what he's doing, is Larry Keenan with UMass. He's like a sneaky, kind of undervalued, underappreciated prospect in the system, described as a big, rangy defenseman who's really good at breaking up transition plays with both his size, a smart stick, really good at doing the kind of tough things that the Red Wings have struggled with in terms of like clearing the net front, just being almost kind of an old school body, like you clear him out and you keep him out kind of thing. And you think about how many times that the Red Wings have been scored on when they have guys in position, the puck just gets through them or they get out-muscled or just big-dogged. Keenan has been excelling in this. He's a big guy, but skates decently well for his size. Decent first pass, good puck transition, and credit again to Red Wings prospects here who's done a lot of work covering these guys. But left-hand shot, plays his offside, though, and so at worst has the flexibility, but could also be a solution on the right side. Big, heavy shot. There's a lot of tools to like in this kid.
Yeah, I could get behind a big Iron Larry Keenan arc here.
Great hockey name.
Those Keenans, tough as nails.
Great hockey name.
They're a little bit unhinged, but we almost like that.
What have we said on the show? We need some psychos. I need a lunatic. I have no idea if this kid's
Mutants are
like
back
that.
on the table. It took me one episode to I lasted one episode.
To forget about Colton Parayko.
Bring me the knuckle draggers again.
Okay, people don't really change.
No, they don't. You can't fake it, like I said. Can't fake it.
No, you are who you are. So someone else who you'll keep an eye on. And then I'd be remiss because he still has people, saying, don't forget about him. Dylan James, a lot of questions about the draft stock and where he was picked, but doing real well with North Dakota. What does he have? 17 goals? They're likely to perform extremely well this season. could still potentially be something down the lineup for the Red Wings in future. So another guy who's doesn't have a lot of eyes on him. So for those who wanted a kind of prospect update, those are some of the bigger names, but also some of the more underappreciated guys as well. All right, let's jump into some NHL news and notes here as we head towards the trade deadline. And, credit to the league. They got trades done early. One minor trade with Matt Luff being moved, so a little bit of a Red Wings flair there. But the more notable trade was between Pittsburgh and Colorado. And admittedly, this one for me was a bit annoying because this is the second time Brett Kulak has been traded this season. And I'm like, I kind of like him as a sneaky pickup. But man, Pittsburgh sent Brett Kulak to Colorado. He's an expiring contract, $2.75 million. Colorado sent Sam Girard and a 2028 second-round pick. Girard has 1 year after this one at $5 million. So they paid a hefty price to clear a year and a bit of cap space. And I got to give Kyle Dubas credit, man. He's doing some really, really good work in terms of maximizing assets over in Pittsburgh. Like if you look, someone laid it out here, what he turned a really shaky Tristan Jarry, who was waived not too long ago. They traded him and his terrible contract into Stuart Skinner, Sam Girard, and 2 future second-round picks.
That's tidy.
Colorado saw what their 2 best defensemen did at the Olympics and went, we need defensive help. But really, they added some cap space there. So, yeah, not a game-breaking trade, but if you're in the West, you're like, okay, what's Colorado positioning to do here? And if you're looking across the rest of the league, you're like, okay, that's another kind of depth defenseman off the board.
The only teams that should concern are Dallas and Minnesota. Everybody else, it's like Colorado is so by far away better than us. Them adding does not change what we do. But for the 2 big dogs who are absolutely going for it, that is definitely a question they should be considering.
What do you think is going to be a bigger impact in terms of rage being converted to points, McKinnon or McDavid? I think McKinnon. I think McKinnon is more of like a rage. Like he plays angry, he skates angry. I feel like that guy's going to score 100 points in his last 20.
Yeah, there's no apathy in his body.
No.
He skates like he's angry at the ice.
Yes. And then he makes it your problem if you get in the way of him skating at the ice.
He had to spend 2 weeks in Italy with all the cigarette smoke and carbs. He's probably so pissed off right now.
Yeah, but it's ruined him. He looks like he has the plague. That guy is fighting some demons. And either way, I still would have picked McKinnon for this question until I saw McDavid's response to that one question the reporter
from
asked him.
Spec. Yeah.
Basically saying, the Stanley Cup and the gold medalist eluded you. How does that make you feel? And what did he say? Just like,
he's like, that's a really nice question. Thanks.
Yeah.
What a... Oh.
Connor McDavid, 3 points per game all the way through the Cup finals.
What else that guy got to do? Like, he's needed one goalie for like 10 years.
He had the gold medal game. Only 2 goals against.
That's true.
That one's got to sting a bit more. That one was more in his control than any other one.
Yeah, the play died on his stick and went back and into their nets. So
see the reverse view, the back checks from McDavid and Makar?
Makar toe picks, which is not great considering he's one of the best skaters on the planet.
No, not great.
And then, McDavid's doing his best JT Miller defensive zone effort.
You can't both be hanging around Patrick Kane style for the play going the other way.
No.
Change my prediction, 4 points per game.
Yeah, if someone sends him this. That guy had 1 bite of gelato and had more sugar on a spoon full of anything than he's had in his entire life. Oh, man, I just thought of the gelato in Italy again. That's going to send me back. The rumblings around the trade world have been funny. A guy whose stock really picked up, Philly's got to be thrilled, is Rasmus Ristolainen, because I think the Olympics were a good chance for him to demonstrate his abilities when playing healthy. I think his stock was raised, big role. And so he's getting more attention. And there's a little bit of a bidding war. They set the price high on Risto, and that's not surprising. I saw it suggested that Logan Stanley, like Winnipeg would try to get what they could for Logan Stanley. Like let's see if we can, pull in a king's ransom and get a first here out of some desperate teams.
What?
And I have to get ahead of this because I have said, sometimes joking, sometimes serious, based on what kind of size and physicality I saw from the Red Wings defense, like bring me Logan Stanley. Never mind.
Yeah.
Like it's I now remember the Michael Jordan meme going, no. Like,
didn't Ryan Reeves get traded for a first? So it's kind of like the Wayne Gretzky, anybody get traded kind of thing. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, I see it in theory. It's very unlikely.
If Winnipeg does that, like GM of the year, Kevin Cheveldayoff, like that. As much as I would like, we're back on the mutant knuckle dragger season. It's been less than a week.
Are you built physically and mentally to be a farmhand? You're great for what we want on this hockey team.
Exactly. But a first round pick like that,
no,
that's a pipe dream for sure.
No, maybe if you're a GM out there doing this, as long as you're not in Detroit and you're in the East, it's a good idea.
Agreed.
But that would be stupid. That's where we're at right now. Like we're talking about, and no offense, but Ristolainen and Logan Stanley, like this is a thin market, man. Like the big guys, I still think there's something to the Robert Thomas, but it's exactly what's been reported, which is the price is high. St. Louis isn't exactly motivated to move him. They might want to replenish their cupboard, so maybe. I think Robertson, it's not likely to happen in season. If it's going to happen ever, maybe. But in terms of who's likely to move, it's a thin market.
Yeah, it makes it tough to add, especially because you don't want to pay those types of prices just to make a move. Like, yeah, it's so difficult. You want to make the playoffs. You want to ensure that you do. You know what the holes are on this team. But when that's the price, it makes it such a difficult play. And if we get to the trade deadline and nothing happens, you know that none of the sellers were willing to move. Or if we see trades come through and the prices are just astronomical, you better start believing Detroit may not be involved.
Yeah. Some other notes around the world of hockey. This is something I wanted to say when we were talking about.
You're not going to talk about the Elias Pettersson, what the price is Vancouver put out?
No, what's that?
So they said they will not retain. And they said it's a premium prospect, a first, and another prospect.
Yeah, I'm good.
You could charge that if you're retaining.
If he was coming off a 100-point season, I would be like, you can have our 2 top prospects.
Yeah, that one's tough. I understand bringing it to the table with that.
Is that like my player wants $10 million, the team's like, we'll give you 5, and they're like, all right, 7.5 is good?
Maybe.
Yeah, but you might, like, relatively speaking, you might need to come even further down. Like, that's a high first asking price. But that's also a weird scenario. The contract was so bad and for so long that they're not in a rush.
Is this just Vancouver just being Vancouver, like being dumb?
Yeah. I don't think it's dumb, though. You have to do that. Like, you can't, it's already a sour situation.
No, but Vancouver's a team where they could be firm on that price. In which case, Elias Pettersson's retiring a Vancouver Canuck.
Still a very likely scenario.
Yeah.
It's high. It's definitely too high, even for someone who can see, like, it's hard to get really talented offensive players in this league, so I understand setting the high price.
So why would you go after Elias Pettersson?
To give, it's like enrichment for your bullies, for your knuckle draggers.
That's right. Like, I didn't know you could do that with the
JT Miller was never better than when he had Elias Pettersson to torment in that locker room.
That is true.
Might be the worst thing I've ever said.
Would you do it for a first and any prospect, like a B-level prospect?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The Caps...
No retention.
No retention.
Okay. No retention, first, and a B-level prospect.
Yep. Yeah, I think I would. Because you know what? The cap hit will suck for a long time.
That's correct.
And it will probably be, at points, a very frustrating thing. But if you were to tell me, like, we're not doing this, do you think it's likely that they're going to get anyone else of his offensive acumen? I'd say the odds say no. So I don't think you can look a gift horse or I don't even know if you can call it a gift horse in the mouth with that. It would suck, but you take your lumps, and that's not a terrible price to pay.
This is where the Seider, Larkin, DeBrincat, and Raymond contracts get so critical, because do I like Elias Pettersson at 11.5? No, absolutely not. But do I like Raymond, Seider, Larkin, and Pettersson at 36-ish mil? Yeah, I'm very okay with that.
But would you rather try and take those assets in the cap space and try and chase a Jason Robertson?
Well, that's obviously the preference.
I would prefer that.
Like, because if you're already like, all right, we'll eat $11 million plus a first plus a prospect, like I feel like we're starting to get in the realm of Robert Thomas, Jason Robertson. It's like, and you know that those are proven commodities, and I will not have the conversation about if Elias Pettersson is a proven commodity. I've made my point very clear on that.
I wouldn't even argue that he is proven. Every time he proves himself, he unproves himself.
Yes.
I would much prefer Thomas or Robertson, but it takes two to tango, and beggars can't be choosers.
It would
kind of
take
where I'm at.
It would take, I think in the end, it would in theory take fewer assets and just more cap space. And I care less about the cap space because I think that's more maneuverable because of what Brad said with the Detroit's excellent core contracts and the cap going up by another $50,000 since we started this conversation.
Well, that's why I suggested it, because if the cap's going up and you don't care about the cap space, then why wouldn't you just go for someone who actually is good and go for a $14-15 million player?
Because Robertson and Thomas will take 4 first-round level assets.
And
okay, so if you're doing a first-round pick and a B-level prospect who's realistically a first-round pick that you made.
No, I would call B-level prospect like a Booyam type.
Yeah, maybe you're closer to being right than I would have thought off the top of my head.
Like, I think all of the Red Wings first round picks that haven't made it yet are still higher than B level. There's a range for sure. But yeah, I think like even Plant would be an A level prospect.
Here's the thing we haven't mentioned yet, and this would be the big thing with me on Pettersson in this severely unlikely and optimistic scenario. If you trade for Elias Pettersson and the cost is whatever it is and you get him, you're still not out on Robert Thomas. You could afford him as well. 14 mil for Robertson might get a little, but Robert Thomas makes less than 9 mil. The cap is going up so much, and also, let's not forget, not real.
Yes.
You can make Robert Thomas work fairly comfortably still, even if it takes a little bit of gymnastics. Like, it's not you trade for Elias Pettersson and then you're done. You can still go. Again, imagine instead of Andrew Kopp on the second line, it's Robert Thomas. Imagine instead of Marco Kasper, Emmett Finney on the first line, it's Elias Pettersson.
Yes.
That's a
feels
contender.
like a horizontal move to me when you talk about Kasper, but what do I know?
But then all of a sudden
they're both ghosts.
Yeah, true.
But then all of a sudden you have Finney, Kasper, who the hell ever on the third line. It changes the dynamic of this team. But yeah, actually it would be Kopp, Finney, Kasper. Sign me up for that as a third line.
11.6 is such a big number. I'm sitting here pushing the cap isn't real, but 11.6 is such a big number.
I just feel like, yeah, when you think about what you could potentially get for almost $12 million, there's probably a lot of options out there.
But the thing is, there isn't.
Well, I meant
that's why we're having this conversation.
But the NHL is so fluid. Like, all it takes is one sort of disgruntled player tomorrow, and the landscape changes completely.
You're more optimistic than me. I don't know. Like, I the way I see it, I'm like, it's just so hard to get those guys to come. Like, and who's going to shake loose? I get it. Something could happen, but
did we really think the Rangers were going to completely implode and Panarin would be out of there? Like, I don't know. Like,
no, that's true.
These things happen all the time.
That's true. Like, you don't want to.
Quinn Hughes could be available in a year, and we've clearly seen that there is a relationship between him and Dylan Larkin. So, is now the time to push your chips all in? I don't know. That's such a carton before the horse type thing, right? Like, it's.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. The fact that there's so much time left means that neither Vancouver nor the team has to rush on this. Like, I don't think Vancouver's going to be pressuring to get him out like they did with Quinn Hughes, for example. If the price that you suggested was the price that they would have to trade him for, I don't think they trade him this year. I think they wait to see if his play recovers and they can get more for him.
Yeah, and having less term might actually be beneficial because then teams can re-sign him for less money.
Yeah, you're so far down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
1.5 Olympics from now.
Oh, God.
Yeah. One other note I want to touch on, because I know we mentioned last episode about obviously the huge success of Michigan as a state, as a hockey state in the Olympics. We're going to talk more about this, but in the women's game, two things need to happen. And I think right now the focus, it sucks that the extremely dominant American women's team run has been just dragged down into the controversy, but the focus should be on how that was one of the most dominant women's Olympic performances of all time. And specifically with Michigan, I want two things: a Division I team at any one of the major colleges and a PWHL team.
I, ignorantly enough, did not know either Michigan State nor Michigan had a women's D1 team, and that just seemed ludicrous to me. Like, they are billion-dollar organizations. Like, how do they not?
And it's such like there's a feasibility study. Jenna Trubiano tweeted, I quote tweeted her on my timeline. They completed a feasibility study in October 2024 to bring D1 women's hockey to the NCAA to Michigan, which would be the first program in the state since 2011 when Wayne State had one. Like, there's some traction on this, but I want to see one of those big.
Why do they need a feasibility study for? They
look
got
at
a bajillion dollars.
Turn the TV on.
Yeah.
Look who scored the golden goal.
I just realized Hank's going to play a game at Yost before D1 women's hockey will, which feels like a crime against sports.
Yeah.
It's of course it's feasible. Like, every major program can do this. And
but that's what they're needing to do to convince, the powers that be. And like,
we'll spend $10 million a year on a football coach, but I'm barking up a topic I have no knowledge on.
So I'm going to piss people off again.
I'm going to make I'm going to be very standoffish in my point. You'll spend $10 million on a football coach, but you wouldn't spend $10 million to bring a D1 women's hockey team to one of the biggest hockey state in the United States. Like, just seems a little crazy the way the money's being divvied out to me.
Yeah, if I'm holding the purse strings at any of the big colleges in Michigan and I'm looking at what happened at the Olympics and thinking this was a dominant run, Michigan's fingerprints were all over it as a state, and I want my fingerprints all over this as a school. And you want to build those ties to the PWHL as it begins to grow. Like, it's it's the lowest, ripest hanging fruit I have ever seen. Just grab it. And like that, and this is coming from a Canadian. Like, that run was so dominant and deserves to be like emphasized. And the role that Michigan hockey had to play on both the men's and women's games, these Olympics, like, you got to lean into it. And
it's a no-brainer.
Just wanted to put that out there.
And I got a player for you in 10 years.
10 years? She was born yesterday, Brad. Don't tell me 10 years. That's crazy.
Think of how many feasibility studies will be done in that time.
Wait, not 10 years. When would she go?
I don't know. They usually go when they're between 18 and 20, so I'm going in the middle.
Oh, okay.
So, well, I mean, she turns 10 in a few months.
That's what I was going to say. Oh, my God, we're old.
That's crazy.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we're back, the next segment of the Winged Wheel podcast back after this.
We're going to overtime.
Overtime is brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. If you want to support the show, join the Dub Club and get access to benefits like our bonus overtime episodes. We let loose, we have fun. You get thoughts with Evan. You get Evan's home address. We pretty much you get the most unhinged Evan you ever will. You also get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord, and you're automatically entered into all of our giveaways. We just ran a giveaway with Gear Geek Hockey and Pro Stock Hockey, where we give away Pro Stock Alex DeBrincat gloves and stick on both Instagram and Twitter, and we're going to do something special just for the patrons as well. We also give away 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game going directly to our Patreon supporters. So all that, lots more, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. Let's take some questions from our patrons here. It's me, Paul, says, you guys think we'll see any more of Finney on the top line? He's been super quiet lately. Feels like he could be an internal new scenery type move.
Right now, coming out of the break, I have no good feel for what's going to happen with anything. Casper was doing fairly well there before the break, so I have no reason to believe that will change. But if it does, I feel like Finney or JVR are probably the first two to get a shot there. Can
I say I hope not? And that sounds mean, and it's not a slight on to Finney, but like, Finney did well, but you could see the limitations of asking a surprise rookie, to be in that spot. And I have no doubt that he could do something with more production in future. But if he's back up there, it means it's not going well with Kasper. Or maybe it's that Kasper has done so well that he's back to playing center, and then you can abide by it. But I don't see it as terribly likely on a long run basis, but it's not impossible.
It's not a bad option, but it's not the optimal one.
Seider, I barely know her, says, with all the discontent surrounding 3-on-3 overtime deciding games, do you actually think there's any chance that international hockey changes the overtime rules to 5-on-5 for at least the first overtime period? Yeah, I would bet that starting with the World Cup into the next Olympics, like I understand scheduling was part of the issue here, but everyone knows that was, it's just not how you're meant to be deciding.
If they want to do it for round robin, whatever.
Sure.
You got to get through a ton of games, like, sure. But when it's a medal round or even the elimination, like, you just let them go.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. And like, this isn't that's why Canada lost, that's why USA won thing. Canada had the better team 3-on-3 on paper. Like, that has nothing to do with this is why, the States won gold. Nothing like that. Even beforehand, we were saying 3-on-3 is kind of a joke. It works for the NHL because they have 100,000 games a year.
When it matters, what happens?
It goes to endless 5-on-5, normal 20-minute periods, the way the good Lord intended.
Exactly.
The gold medal game, any medal
game. It's like in the World Cup where they go to a shootout for the World Cup finals. It's like, you know what? You've only been qualifying for this for 6 months or to a year. You know what? We're kind of out of time. Yeah. Let's just go. Let's get this thing over with. We got to go watch some interpretive dance at the closing ceremonies.
We got to hand out these plushies, man. We've been just so excited to hand out these plushies.
I can't believe we didn't talk about that.
Oh,
Nathan McKinnon getting handed a plushie was maybe one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
What was the one tweet that was floating around? There is nothing on this planet in more danger than this plushie that just got handed to Nathan McKinnon.
He looked at it like, did I just get handed a plushie? Hey guys, how's the arena progress going? What? The arena progress? Did you double check
we did talk about this.
The size of the foundation the way we asked? What? Oh, no. Anyways, hear me out. I just had the best idea for what to give the losers of the gold medal game.
Grown men.
And women. The women got it too.
Oh, they did too?
Oh, yeah. And I'll say you can see it on the Canadian women's face too. Like,
why?
What is this?
Why?
The one that Nathan McKinnon got still hasn't landed.
He actually threw it at the net. He just missed to the left. Rasmussen and Petrie on a 2-0 breakaway says, if you could take one player from each of the Olympic medal-winning rosters and plop them onto the Red Wings, who are you taking, and are they Cup favorites? McDavid, Quinn Hughes, Miro Heiskanen, and yes, right?
Oh, now I'm having a debate in my mind. I was going to say Hellebuck, but Gibson's playing good enough. I think Quinn Hughes does make the bigger difference.
No, you could still say Hellebuck because you're bringing in Heiskanen.
Yeah, give me one at each position. Give me McDavid, Hellebuck, Heiskanen.
Does that make him Cup favorites?
Yes. That defense with that goalie.
You have Seider and Edvinsson on your second pair.
Actually, you know what? If you stick with Gibson and he keeps playing well, and all of a sudden the left side of your D can be Edvinsson, Hughes, Heiskanen, you're winning a Stanley. And Connor McDavid's on your first line, you're winning a Stanley Cup.
Seider would still be first pair.
Okay.
Yeah. And your
not bringing a right defenseman.
And your left side of the D would be the single strongest position any NHL team's ever had.
The NHL might have to intervene. That's a fun thought experiment. Rocky Mountain Red Wing says, with the NHL now regularly playing a tighter schedule, Olympics and World Cup, and looking at having more games in the season, what are your thoughts on implementing the Olympic roster of 2 more players dressing for each game as a way to help reduce the minute load over the course of a season? Of course, this comes with the caveat, if the league expands towards 36, that would mean an extra 164 players. Obviously a talent dilution issue. Good for the PA, maybe not as good for quality of play.
I don't really care either way on that one. I don't know if it's the best idea I've heard on the subject, but it's the funniest one I've heard. I think Merrick's the one who championed it, where it's kind of like baseball, where you can make subs at intermission. Pull someone out of the press box, you're going in. This guy sucks, he's out. Or this guy's hurt, you can replace him.
It feels a bit gimmicky.
Bringing in our closer, it's like Phil Kessel's up in the press box, got half a hot dog down the gullet, and he's like, uh-oh.
That's probably already happened.
Yeah.
I feel like that would just drive me nuts, though, because like the Red Wings have a 1-goal lead going into the third period, and they pull a skill guy to bring in Evan's knuckle dragger.
Hell yeah.
Evan's pet mutant.
Well, you know where it would get entertaining is if a certain team that doesn't receive any supplemental discipline is on their shit that night. All of a sudden, the murderer's row from the press box comes down for the third period, and it's like everybody's going to be on their best behavior. Otherwise, we're going to pump your eyes shut. That could be interesting.
The Tampa, Florida games would somehow get even bloodier.
Yeah. Hey, we're here to be entertained.
Yeah, I ultimately land on I think there's not enough talent for the entire NHL. If you bring this to the Olympics, though, I do think the Olympics should be bringing more people. I firmly believe that because I think that's you want to decide which nation has the best hockey roster, and injuries are going to happen, and it's a short tournament, and so I think you should bring.
We're going to play 6-on-6 overtime now.
Yeah, why not? Even smaller ice. No one's going to have room. Tom Wilson's
thought
going to
the
be the
neutral
MVP.
zone was small now.
Yeah.
They're going to put the lines beside each other.
Dan DeVries says, Perfetti is a name I've seen mentioned in trade conversation. What do you guys think of him? 52 points last year playing alongside Ehlers and Nemesnikov. 18 points playing through 42 games on a line with Lowry and Velarde this season. He's 24 with a year left on his contract after this one at $3.25 million. Is he a guy that the Wings should consider as a reclamation project? And if so, do they have a reasonable trade package to make it happen?
I think yes to all of the above, but this would be one I'd be a little tentative on, but I would still be interested.
The Red Wings have the assets to bring in
Anybody
who is on the trade market. The Red Wings have the assets. There's very few players in this league where I'm like, Detroit couldn't bring them in, and those are all guys who aren't getting traded. So, yeah. It's Two Wings says, you mentioned a while ago that Yzerman may not be around for a cup win because he would want to move on. If the team trends, what do you see that would lead him to leaving? I think it's just how long he's been in the game kind of thing. Like, he's going to want to retire. Like, does he want to work at that age? Does he want to have such an active, like the GM role is a busy role. It's not just the day-to-day duties of the GM. Like, he travels, he goes to rinks, like he's scouting, he's, in meetings, there's a business side to this now in the modern game. I don't think Steve Yzerman's going to want to work forever. So I could see him taking like a back seat. Like, he still has a lot of power, but he's not calling all the shots every day kind of role, so that he can kind of enjoy time with his family kind of thing.
Kind of like the president of hockey ops almost, like
Yeah.
but maybe more of a ceremonial role than that in its true nature. Could certainly see that.
Yeah, maybe not exactly what Nick Lidstrom has now, a little bit more power and advisory control, but something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You think they've already played out that scene from Holes? I'm tired, Grandpa. Well, that's too damn bad.
Chris Ilitch, it's too damn bad. I mean, Chris Ilitch, talk about spending and free agency. Oh man, Justin Verlander's a Tiger again. Be still my beating heart. All right, we are going to take one more quick break, and when we're back, we're going to wrap up this episode back after this. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Next time we talk, there will have been 2 Red Wings games, which will be a fun return. So appreciate all of you tuning into this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast. Thank you to the sponsors of the Winged Wheel Podcast and to all of our Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast. Again, if you want to support the show and if you want to help us out, but Patreon's not for you, that's totally okay. Aside from joining the Dub Club, what you can do is subscribe wherever you're getting this podcast, be that Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, multiple platforms. That does help. Leave a rating, a review, the stars, a thumbs up, a heart, whatever it is. All of that makes a big difference for us. And to all of our name level supporters on Patreon, we could not do this show without you. So thank you so much. Arjun Shanker, Aikfer, Martin Norberg, THL Champ, Samuel Soderholm, Klaus Sorensen, Glenn Brabham, Rain Dano, Below Average Ball Hockey Goalie, Matthew M. Rice, Give Cider the Sea, Sea Lion, Detroit Style Deep Dish Cider, Bingo Bango, Hassam Al-Qassem, Asher Killian, Kalen Wood, Alex Toger, That's What I Appreciate About You, Derek Enstam, Matt McKay, Andy Hardcore, Sam Bankson, Citizen High Five, R.A., Aaron Hudson, Admiral Matt S. of the Cheesebag Navy, The El Cato, Stephen Ortlieb, Jonathan Miller, Give Blood Fight Probert, DJ Denton, Carl Brutananaluski, Raul Pudd, Jay Gollum, Settlers of Catan Stan, John Ingalls, Alex Bonilla, CB55, Connor Scovey, Adam Zuiza, Adam Rose, Denny's Gamer Girl, Drinking Baileys from a Shoe, Hockeytown Matt, Mr. Kuzi, Chaotic Monkey, Craig Kibble, Iserplan Stan, Clip Clop Nene, Podgy 713, Unapologetic Gibson Truther, Griffin Not from Grand Rapids, Winter Knight, Marty, Kazi the OG 13, Jeff Pridemore, Eric Hill, Butts Carlton, Best James Bond, Beer League Legend, Alec, Mark Hernandez, Slim Smitty Cards, Grand Rapids Girly, Anna Sleeman, William, Mike Asher, August, Brian Munn, Improved but Flawed, Chris 99 Jones, Trevor Centerfit, Adams, Red Wings Takes, Kurt Chin, Adam Ernie Slander, Kachuk Brothers, Walk to Church, Daniel Morosky, Zach Mounts, Logan Stull, Colin White, General Andy Bohan of the Cheesebag Army, Quaz, Dylan Larkin Trade Sacrifice, Antonio Gracias, Banana is Larger, Matt Keeler, Linda Hull, Connor Leighton, Good Cop, Brad Cop, Josh Yelton, Brad Simmons, Darren Fick, Bex, The Hodag, Daddy Pastor Jake, The Pew Pew Laser of Love, 200-Foot High Compete, Maximilian, Commander Ben Bear of the Cheeseback Space Force, Sandin-Pellikka's Pet Pelican, Griffey Boy, JM Rhapsody, Frank Stanley, Rosie Posey, That Other Guy, Pucking Puck Puck, Tom Iserplan Respecter, Carl Thames, Nerno, The Hat 123, Steven, A. Ron, Corey Prida, All Motor No Hands, Gene Sullivan, Stinky Britches, James Pridemore, Upernadian, Adrock Jablonski, Drop the Puck, Eric Nance, and Stanislavski, Jim, Bellingham Acid Balls, Peter Swanson, Wings Fan in St. Louis Scott, Lucas Raitman, Cop Scump Lip, Trent Thorough, Grepsky, Evan Beckner, C.E. Hayes, Finney to the Rafters, Jacob Marsh, Fuckness, Fight Night at the Joe, Axels, Sandy Pelican, The Octopi's Ninth Leg, Finney the Pooh, AG, The OG, brand new name level supporter. Welcome to the Dub Dub Club. I'm Evan, you're Evan, we're all Evan, Cassidy Hart, and your second favorite patron. Thank you all so very much. Red Wings hockey by the time we're back.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to visit wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you'll find links to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find ways to support the show, like Patreon, official podcast merchandise, and more. And don't forget to follow us on X at Winged Wheel Pod, at Ryan Hanna, WWP, at Brad Crisco, and at Hockeytown Evan, as well as Winged Wheel Podcast on Instagram.